All right, thanks everyone for being here today. We're going to get started off with a quick video from the second stringers, the scrub podcasters, the folks that just didn't make the cut to be here tonight. Let's get going.
Hi Gooners.
Hello Arsenal fans.
Hi Gooners, this is Peter Drury.
Lee Dixon here.
This is Super Kevin Campbell.
This is Clive.
Hello, I'm a walrus.
Perry Groves here, Arsenal's second greatest ginger.
Alan Smith here.
This is Amy Lawrence here, sending you a big hello from the heart of Highbury.
I could say I'm sorry not to be at GoonerPalooza this weekend.
I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you at the GoonerPalooza event.
GoonerPalooza.
To GoonerPalooza.
The GoonerPalooza.
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 To GoonerPalooza.
But as it happens, I can't make it because that day I'm going to be recovering from having commentated on Arsenal against Southampton, and that may require some rest.
But Martin Keown is giving a masterclass on knee-high tackles, and I thought I can't miss that, so I'm not going to be able to make it, I'm afraid.
I'm going in for a Rob Holding hair transplant appointment, and I've waited a long time for it, so I couldn't miss it.
But having just returned to Ireland, having spent 3 days and nights drinking basically all the tequila and beer that city has to offer, I probably need a little bit of time off.
And I'm a little bit frightened about being in any way responsible if I do leave a 1 mile radius of Highbury.
But I'm a football dad. Like so many dads and parents out there, unfortunately, I couldn't get away.
Because I'm having my ginger dreadlocks replatted.
But as I'm sure you know, Lake Michigan is a freshwater lake and I need salt water. So it was a no-go.
But I was washing my hair that day. No, I wasn't, no.
But even though I can't make it,
I hope you all have a most fantastic time.
I hope you all have an amazing time.
I hope you enjoy the show.
Dig deep into your pockets to raise loads of money.
get your long arms into your short pockets and give generously.
I hope you give very, very generously.
As much as you can to support the great work of the Arsenal Foundation.
The Arsenal Foundation.
For the Arsenal Foundation.
To the splendid Arsenal Foundation.
To the amazing Arsenal Foundation.
To the amazing Arsenal Foundation.
To the fantastic Arsenal Foundation.
To the wonderful Arsenal Foundation.
We're hitting incredible numbers and it's all down to you and this fantastic community.
It is so fantastically appreciated.
And most importantly of all,
Before I go, of course, we're going to say...
Up the Gunners.
Up the Arsenal.
Come on, Arsenal.
Come on, you Gunners!
Come on, you Gunners.
Come on, you Gooners!
Up the Arsenal! Come on, you Gunners!
it says here, come on you Gunners.
I'll catch you on the next one. Maybe the end of May. Could we have something to celebrate? I might be able to drink a beer by then.
After New York last weekend, I think I need a bit of rehab.
Mike insisted I do this video. I don't know why. Maybe he's just a bad person.
And remember, my old man said be a Tottenham fan. I said, you can fill in the blanks.
You can hear from my voice I'm not at 100%.
Gooner.
Okay, goodbye.
There was a lot of competition for these spots and that, just not good enough. Welcome to GoonerPalooza Live. My name is Mike. I am very humbled and honored to be hosting a very special show for you all today with some very special people for a very, very special cause. We've got a great show planned for you today, so let's get right to it and introduce our star-studded panel. First, we're going to start from people who live close to Chicago and go further out from there. So, he's a man of many talents, of which podcasting used to be one of them. He, along with some of the other panelists tonight, hosted one of the podcasts I used to listen to when I was trying to figure out what you had to do to be a podcaster, and clearly I did not learn the job the correct way, but that's probably not his fault. He's a man who's changed his names a number of times, once known as Miami Jon. He's also been known as J-Dog, J. Diddy, the artist formerly known as Miami Jon, and now that he resides right here in Chicago, he's finally settled on the very original moniker, Chicago Jon. So let's give it up for the man called Chicago Jon. Now, Jon, you mysteriously disappeared last night. We just assumed that you were so gutted by the game yesterday. What happened?
Okay, so I set an alarm for 7, and that turned out to be 7 a.m. So I went home to take a nap and then woke up at like 10:30. And I said, well, yeah, so that,
apparently it was still going on for quite a while here.
It was, but then I'm not going to show up at 10:30.
Next, just like Jon, this man resides in Chicago, but unlike Jon, he's clearly a native. His accent just screams Chicago. You may know him as Paul. You may know him as Paz, which is apparently something you're supposed to do in your pants. He has the singing voice of an angel. Actually, sorry, I mean that I've heard his singing voice at a karaoke bar in Angel. He's one of the core members of the world-famous and award-winning Arsenal Vision podcast and an all-around lovable guy. Let's give a warm welcome to Paul.
Woohoo!
How did you enjoy your GoonerPalooza so far?
Apart from the game, which was a bit shite. No, it was brilliant. Met loads of people last night, through the day, talking about how they listen to the podcast. It was fantastic. Mowing their garden, working, walking the dogs, taking showers. That was popular with 2 people. And I
thought that's what you did for the people that you were talking to last night.
Yeah, for the Patreons, yeah. And I'm just delighted to see what you guys look like when you just have to sit there and listen to a podcast.
It's always different live.
Good.
400 miles from Chicago lives a man who is the master of reverse psychology. For 8 years, I've been asking people to follow me on Twitter, crickets. He goes out and tells people to block him on Twitter at Yankee Gunner and has fucking 100,000 people following him. So, seriously, though, this man is one of the truly good ones. He's a guy whose talent, energy, and drive have vaulted him to Arsenal podcast superstardom. Yet he uses his evil mind-controlling powers for the greater good. He's the founder, host, organizer, and chief speed talker of the Football Content Awards Gold winner for Best Premier League Podcast, the Arsenal Vision Podcast. Please clap your hands for the one, the only, Elliot Smith, a.k.a. Yankee Gunner.
I'm a lot taller on audio. And I think we can all agree that Paul is too tall. He should not be that tall, and it is offensive to me that he is that tall. But thank you for being here. You do not have to switch your players to 1.5x. They will now be on 1.5x for the rest of the afternoon.
Now, I had the privilege of spending the night before you did your Union Chapel show with you, and I know that you were up until all hours doing karaoke and then still managed to have a great show the next day. It's happened again, hasn't it?
It's happened again. It's happened again. He's saying karaoke. It happened again. Yeah.
Sorry I missed it, but I'm not sorry I missed it.
Sorry, not sorry.
The last 2 are people who I truly consider like family. One, my sister. The other, both my son and my father at the same time. First, joining us from the City of Angels, we are joined by somebody truly special. She's worked in Los Angeles with all kinds of really famous people, like even more famous than Elliot, if you can believe that. Now, while some people, not me, have stood up on a stage and said that people from Los Angeles don't know anything about the Premier League, I think we all know that that's just ridiculous. And there's no better example of that being ridiculous than our next guest. Over the last 3 years, I've watched Sophie go from a casual podcaster to a true force in the game. She's invested her time, her creativity, her relationships, and her incredible energy into growing the Highbury Squad into a can't-miss 8 p.m. UK hour, plus Sophie time. For a legion of Gooners who name themselves Squaddies, and there's a lot of Squaddies here today in the crowd. She's the Greek freak, the Giannis... I can't even pronounce that. Let's hear it.
Yanis Antetokounmpo.
Nice. Of Arsenal podcasting, where I am apparently...
Socrates Papastadopoulos.
Yeah, you beat me too.
Dimitris Mitropanos.
She's an amazing podcaster, but an even more amazing human being. Put your hands together for Sophie, the soccer diva Nicolaou.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm really stoked to be here. I was actually coming to Chicago for my 20th anniversary, and my partner wasn't well and couldn't come, and now I'm here, and I just love, I've always wanted to come to Chicago, love this city. Chicago Gooners have done a crazy good job. It's just wonderful being among all of you, and I'm really excited to be sandwiched in between podcast legends here.
And we can't wait for you to lead us in a rounding rendition of North London Forever, your favorite song.
Good old Arsenal, we're proud to say your name while we sing this song.
Last but not least, you ready? The man who's flown 4,000 miles, and he told us he would fly 4,000 more just to... No, I'm not going to do that. When I met Tom, he was a school teacher in Kent teaching 13-year-old girls geography, and he was like 18 at the time, which I have no idea how that's allowed. But the man had a dream and a talent, and it wasn't about teenage girls. It was about talking and writing about football. Over the last 7 years, Tom has taken the Gooner Talk TV from a YouTube channel to the stratosphere with nearly 50,000 subscribers with his daily 8 a.m. podcast, as well as his daily 10 a.m., 1 p.m., 3:30 p.m., 4 p.m., and 9 p.m. podcast. And he's taken TGT from not winning any awards to winning FCA Best Podcast Awards year after year. He's gone from writing articles about indigenous Albanian second division football to now sitting in the press box and the press conferences at the Emirates and at other Premier League stadiums covering the Arsenal for Football.London. He's half my age, but twice as mature. Let's hear it for Tom Canton.
I knew the intro was going to be something, but that was yeah.
That was technically something.
It was something. No, it's honestly this.
Dodgy is the word.
Dodgy is the word. Yeah, no. I've been so welcomed by so many people. Like, I could not have picked a better city to come over to, and a massive thank you to everyone that's made me feel so welcome. It's been amazing.
I just want to say the number of cards in front of Mike right now leads me to believe the introductions may take longer than one of my questions for Clive. So we will get to the football chat eventually. Just sit tight.
The introductions are done now. And your voice is recovering a little bit?
Not at all.
It sounds so good this morning.
Yeah, not as much as Elliot's. No, it's great. No, it's been wonderful. Yeah.
So we are here to talk about the Arsenal, but it would be irresponsible not to spend a little bit of time talking about the amazing things like this that the Gooners can do when they put their heart into something. Elliot, we know that you're generous AF, you're driven AF, and charitable AF, so much so that AF now actually stands for Arsenal Foundation.
See what you did there?
Yes. So please, if you will, let's start with a video. Henry, if you can play the video about the Arsenal Foundation, then I'll hand the mic over to you for figuratively.
Come to a live event to watch me watch a video of me.
Hey everybody, not the usual nonsense from me this time, so hopefully you can bear with me, but as you can probably tell, not my usual environment. This is the Zaatari refugee camp in Jordan, an 80,000 person refugee camp for people who have fled the war in Syria. Of the 80,000 people here, 40,000 of them are children. And you probably know by now that last year, as a community, you showed up in an unbelievable way to give. And we're going to be asking you to give again this year, as we will. But this time I wanted to have the chance to see the people that was going to impact so that as a community we could really understand the difference we can make. And what the Arsenal Foundation is doing here is saving the lives of young people who are at risk of gender-based violence, of child labor, of child marriage, who don't have the skill set to help stand up for themselves and to enforce their rights and see a brighter future. And what the Arsenal Foundation, together with Save the Children, does with the coaching programs here is they take what they've learned with Arsenal in the community in North London and they transport it to this place and bring hope to these kids to create sustainable resiliency. And they need it. And they need us, because without us that program goes away. You're going to hear from mothers and fathers and young girls and young boys who are in this program and for whom it provides them everything they need to be able to live a fuller life. So we will be asking you to give. We will be giving. I can't wait to share the story with you, and I can't thank you enough for being part of the community and being willing to be a part of this project.
Now, Elliot, let's just check on how this little fundraiser thing is doing. You've got a couple quick... Holy shit.
£363,000 raised for the Arsenal Foundation. I'll do this really quickly.
Can I just add, Elliot, that's $450,000.
I mean, it depends on what the UK government does. It might be $360,000 by tomorrow. But look, you're not here. You're here for football chat. We'll definitely get to that. So I'll do this as quickly as I can. Going there was obviously a life-changing moment. We often say we wear the badge with pride, that we're proud of what our club does. What they're doing in the Zaatari camp is extraordinary. It is one of the largest refugee camps in the world, and more than half the people there are children. And the amount of suffering there is immense, but the amount of joy and hope and prosperity that the club is bringing to young people is just is phenomenal. So a lot of people have given, and we're not here to say, please give. Like, whatever you did, whatever you want to do, great. The most important thing is just it shows that the club is about more than just what we do on the pitch. And while that's why we're here and what we're here to talk about, when we come together as a community, we can do great things. So thank you for being a part of that. I feel very privileged to have been there, and I can tell you that we can all feel very proud of the badges that many of us are wearing on our chest today, because the work they're doing is incredible. So thank you for that.
Excellent job. As someone who's spent a little bit of time trying to raise money for charity, it is not easy, and I have the utmost of respect for what you and everyone that is, Andrew and then everybody that is hopped on that has done. It's unbelievable, and it makes me so proud of this fan base and this football club. So I started organizing the format of this podcast a few days before the Liverpool game. So, needless to say, I was kind of hoping and expecting for a fairly celebratory, upbeat podcast, and then, the last 60 minutes against Liverpool, the last 60 minutes against West Ham, the most of the game yesterday. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the game yesterday, and then we'll move into kind of how we're feeling at this point in the season about this most unique of Arsenal seasons. So, starting about yesterday. Well, first of all, happy St. Totteringham's Day. It's happened again, everyone. And appropriately in a toilet seat. It used to be something that we were very happy about. I didn't see too many people screaming about it yesterday, but I think it'll settle in and it'll be a little bit more fun as the season goes on. So about yesterday, John, what the fuck was that?
I don't know. I felt like after that game, I really didn't know exactly how to feel about it. I was kind of relieved, but in despair at the same time, because we're going through this and it's this emotional thing, and right off the bat, we're all these people are here, flying all over the country, and there's this big event happening this weekend, so that might have added to it a little bit. But then all of a sudden, within seconds, it feels like, all of a sudden the goal's in the back of the net, and we're like, what is going on? I look at Tom, and Tom's like shell shocked, and all of a sudden you're going, now we're fighting, and more goals are going in the back of the net, and you're saying, what's going on here? We get one back, and all of a sudden here we are. The team fought back, which was great, I thought, but
were you able to enjoy?
I didn't enjoy a second of the game. Yeah. I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed. I'll tell you when I enjoyed. When it was 3-3 and we had like 8 minutes left or whatever it was. I was like, yes, finally, let's do this. We're gonna. And then no, it didn't happen. And then afterwards, I didn't know what to do with my hands. I didn't know if I should be happy or sad.
That's normal, to be fair. You never know.
I never know what to do with my hands, but at that point, I really didn't. So it was definitely a bizarre game, and all of these thoughts start flooding through your head about the whole season and what does this result mean and what are we going to do from here, and then we have City next week away, and if we start like that against City, what's going to happen, and it was very anxiety inducing. So I don't know. I didn't know what to feel about it.
Tom, now you were sitting next to Tom, so
yes.
Did he not know what to do with his hands, and did you become part of what he did with his hands?
Well, what happened when that third goal again?
Oh yeah, we were responsible for a lot of shattered glass all over the table. Yeah,
the Globe is sending a party out to find you.
Yeah, I'm not welcome back there anymore. Yeah.
Your overall feelings. You've mentioned on your 8 a.m. podcast this morning that the atmosphere was incredible. You enjoyed you're not typically in a pub watching a game. You're either at the game or at home or, as a fan or a journalist. Tell us about your experience watching the game and any feedback you have on the, kind of what this game means. We'll talk about individual parts of it later. But.
Yeah, of course. No, I think, first of all, from the Globe perspective, you come out here and you wonder what is fandom like abroad from a UK perspective, because as we know, soccer has grown ridiculously.
It's football, mate.
What's soccer? Soccer is what my son used to play.
Stick to baseball, Tom.
Just trying to do the business, mate. But of course, it has grown so ridiculously, and I think a lot of people in the UK probably underestimate how much you guys love football, and don't have an appreciation for the passion. I was nearly knocked out in that third goal in the Globe pub yesterday. And it wasn't just because of Jon's, hands. But I think that ultimately it's amazing what I thought, how similar I felt after that game as I did after the Anfield game. How the complete opposite of what a game is can bring you the two same emotions of both relief in some kind of fashion, but also brutal disappointment of what we felt. Because after Anfield, you've conceded late on, and you're feeling like, well, we could have lost that game. Very easily could have lost at Anfield, but thank goodness we came away with a point. And then in yesterday's game, it's a case of, well, thank goodness, because we could have lost that game, but it's gone the complete opposite direction. And I think that chaos, I don't want to use the terminology of if we don't go to win the league, but we need to prepare ourselves for that, because it could happen. I'm really hoping it doesn't. But I think that performances like we've seen at Anfield, like we saw yesterday, will be synonymous with a team that maybe is not yet quite ready to claim that glorious trophy.
Well, and we'll get on to kind of that thought and what we have ahead of us in the next, 6 games left. Elliot, you were at the Globe yesterday. Do you get
were able to see me amongst the crowd?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, because you were standing next to Paul. What was your experience like at the pub yesterday? And obviously your thoughts on the game just from a standpoint of how it went yesterday. It was so opposite of the Liverpool and West Ham games in how we kind of fixed it at the end rather than blew what we started at the beginning. But how was your experience yesterday overall?
It's frustrating. And I think anybody who says it's not frustrating is probably kidding themselves, right? I think we look at that game as one that if you want your title credentials to stand up to the test, then you have to beat the bottom team at home. I think one thing that's hard is because there have been so many people that want us to bottle it, want to say we're bottling it. Gary Neville wants to say we're going to bottle it, and we want to push back against that. And because we want to push back against the outsiders who want to attack our club from the outside, we want to resist the narrative from the inside. But if we're honest, maybe, just maybe we bottled it a little bit. And it hurts to admit that because it makes those other people right, and we don't want them to be right about our club. Now, is it gone? It's not gone. But dropping a 2-goal lead at West Ham and conceding 3 to the bottom team at home is something that a team with title credentials probably doesn't do. But I do have the words of Lee Dixon ringing in my ears a little bit. I talked to him last week, and he talked about '89 when we lost to Derby County, when we drew at home to Wimbledon, and felt it was gone. And because we felt it was gone, played with the freedom we had shown that season, and were able to do it at Anfield, where the pressure was sort of back on them because they had it. They just had to not let it slip. And so maybe this shift in dynamic for a City team that has been stalking us down like the T-1000 Terminator they are, with 2 eyes on Madrid, maybe, just maybe, that psychology of, well, now it's theirs to bottle, changes the dynamic a little. And this young team can put the smiles back on their faces and play with the freedom we've seen a lot of the season. And so I'll be interested to see how that psychological battle happens. But I don't think we should be scared to accept that this young team maybe, just maybe, felt that pressure psychologically. And yes, we hate that other people outside our club are saying it, but we should be willing to at least acknowledge the truth of what we saw yesterday. The manager is young as well, yes.
Yeah. I wrote an article earlier this year for Gunnerstown that would just compare this season to '89, and including the 2 seasons that led up to this season, and how many unbelievable similarities there are, and hoping that those would continue. And I was going to mention later on that the Derby and Wimbledon game, which with my friend John in the front row, he's expecting me to say this, so I'm going to say it. I was at those games. I felt that we had blown.
We were all at Anfield in '89.
I wasn't at Anfield.
Everybody was at Anfield in '89.
I wasn't at Anfield. I'm not one of those people that say that.
I know someone who was at Anfield.
Yeah. We all do. It was Kevin Campbell, right? But
actually, yeah, Kev was in the Cop End. He was a youth player, and he watched it as a fan as well. It was kind of nuts, his story.
He was walking down the touchline when the goal went in. But, no, the 2 games before that, though, the feeling was, how did we get here where we had this chance, and then all of a sudden, how did we blow it? Because we had blown it. And maybe now we feel like we've blown it. Maybe we haven't. We'll see. A little more time left in the season than there was that year, though. But Sophie, you, if anyone's familiar with hockey and the stat plus minus, it's when a player is on the ice. If a goal's scored, you get a plus. If a goal's scored against you, you get a minus. So you can lose a game and have like a +3 rating. Sophie's rating yesterday was +2 because she arrived right after the second goal. From she thought, I'll get here 10 minutes late and I won't miss anything.
And I finally took off that bloody hat, and we almost lost. So.
And I forgot to bring my scarf, and
so we know whose fault it is.
Yeah, Sophie, my fault.
Basically, it's all my fault.
How was your day yesterday? How was your experience at the Globe? I mean, I know you had a good time, but I saw you on your knees praying on a. This sounds really bad, but on a bench. Like, I mean, in the 94th minute, you were doing anything you could to get us over.
Back in the day, when Beckham got injured for the World Cup and Rooney, the Sun would do that centre spread. You'd put your knees and pray on it for them to be injury-free for the tournament. Okay, I'm Sophie. I have a confession to make. This is why I don't do watch-alongs. This is why I watch the games pretty much on my own, because I swear a lot and I pray a lot and I pace. I love the vibe. I thought the roof was going to come off the pub when the third goal went in. I have to admit, the second goal left me feeling numb. I just sat there and I just thought, you bastards, don't do this, you know? And when the third goal went in, though, I lost it, because what that point means based on the last three games is just so huge, and we can still go to the Etihad clear and hope that we can get something out of it. I have to say, you know, I was one of those people that definitely didn't see what Arteta's all about at the beginning. Another confession, Jesus Christ, what is this? And I think that the journey we've been on this season supersedes what's happened in the last three games for me. I'm trying to be sensible about it, but at the same time, I really bloody want to win the Premier League badly. Like, really badly. And that game yesterday was the game that on our little, game picks, we've got Southampton, 3 points. West Ham, 3 points. Liverpool, a point. I was stoked with getting a point at Anfield. So it's not over. And until it's mathematically over, I'll keep believing. But it was a gut punch yesterday, and it hurt real bad. And Mikel Arteta, everyone's saying the players shit the bed. But you know what? Sorry, they're children here. No. Okay. He fucking shit the bed. So, we'll get to that, though. That's my take.
We will. So, Paul, let's start talking about the game a little bit. Ramsdale.
Mm-hmm.
Overall view versus, was this a one-off or a three-off or whatever yesterday? Or, is this a systemic issue where he's maybe very talented at some things but not in others?
Systemic, no. So we did our instant reaction yesterday. He was my stock falling. One of the things he brings...
Hey, that's paid content, so we need to...
I'll cover you. How much?
Yeah. I'll give you £360,000 for that.
Deal.
You're seeing both sides of Elliot there. The guy who'd fleece his own granny, but the guy who got us to $450,000 for the Arsenal Foundation. So
I contain multitudes.
Yeah, he does. You have done in the past, but we won't tell those stories. Yeah. Ramsdale. It was a fuck up. And especially because his MO is kind of the big personality, the kind of mentality monsters. But, you got to have been there. And he and this team has never been there. The Globe yesterday, by the way, absolutely fantastic. What a bloody atmosphere. And then the other side of that is they score. And, I've never heard such a dead sound. And, that's just because the connection of the fans with this team, what a gut punch 3 times. So you get all the emotions there, which is why I don't go every week. That's pretty heady stuff. Sorry to whoever got the beer shampoo from my glass. It was not my action, but I guess it was my shampoo.
Or your toothpaste. Was it your toothpaste?
I've gone beyond toothpaste. All the toothpaste is always in the top of the tube these days. There's no pushing the toothpaste up the tube, which is kind of a tactical point from yesterday, potentially. Where am I at with all of this? There's an emotional curve. I'm kind of around there, probably like most of you guys. I'm on the way back. There's Wednesday here. We got to get back up for it. The team has got to get back up for it. Anfield 89, that's as good as an analogy as anything. Yesterday and maybe early this morning was Witches of Salem time. You talked about how the outside views the club. Inside, it's all finger pointing. It was this guy, it was that guy, it was the other guy. When do people do witch burnings? When things are really in the shitter and you don't have any answers. Hey, let's burn a few witches. That might work. So we're going to talk about lots of witches today. We'll burn them. Holding, Ramsdale, Party, Vieira, take your pick. There's the collective. There's the individual witches. We'll burn a few, see if that works.
I didn't bring a lighter, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Metaphorical, Mark.
Yeah, okay.
Metaphorical witch burning.
And let's get into that. And you know, we're not just going to go start headhunting who to blame for everything that went wrong, but there are a few individual performances, and that...
Mike, can I just say something in favor of witch burning? Get it out of your system. Like...
We're still talking about football, though, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So obviously... There's been a lot of debate, not about whether Holding should be playing over Saliba, because Saliba hasn't been available, but how much that has actually hurt us in the last few games. Didn't hear as much debate about that against Palace and the other games that he's played. But John, let's start with Holding. Is he to blame? And I'll ask the entire panel, because I've heard some interesting views on him. Is he to blame about our change in play, about the way that we play offensively or defensively? And what would you have done differently than Arteta when it came to either the starting lineup or substitution patterns?
There's a lot to unpack there. First, I mean, how much can you really expect from your fourth, fifth, maybe choice center back? I think he's doing exactly what you would expect a player like Holding to do when you come into a situation like this. So to say, can we blame him? It's kind of an interesting question when you have to unpack what that means. So is he a reason we're not playing as well? Well, if you don't have a player like Saliba, you're not going to play as well, no matter what. Is that his fault? I don't think so. I think that when you have such a talent like that, it's going to have a drop in the production that you can create, either from a defensive perspective or even an attacking perspective when you look at the stats of how Saka would get the ball less now with Holding. But I don't want to put a crosshair on him because I don't think we're losing games because of Holding. When you look at the collapses that we've had in the last couple games, it's showing some kind of a mentality thing. You have a young team, you have a young manager. I don't see it as much as a personnel issue necessarily, though I understand the counter argument when you're looking at him maybe making some mistakes here and there, and it's not as structurally sound at the back. And I think the big argument for Ramsdale might be maybe some of the mistakes he's making recently have been because he doesn't have that solidity psychologically of Saliba at the back. Because it's one thing when you have Saliba and Gabriel, and it's another thing when you have Holding and Gabriel. Both of them have not been playing very highly, in my opinion. I think Gabriel has been a little bit rash as well. So I'm wondering if there's also a psychological effect on your other center back. You have a partnership, and we know that in football, the center back partnerships are a very special partnership, more so than anyone. I think maybe second might be a midfield partnership. But other than that, your center back partnership is the most important. And I think that when you lose one, especially one that's been playing so well, it's going to have a knock-on effect. And I think it's going to affect the mentality of the team. And I don't think it's a mistake that we're starting to see these kind of bizarre mistakes from this team that maybe we wouldn't have seen earlier if we didn't have all the team fit that has been playing so well with each other for the rest of the season. But I don't want to pick him out because I don't think it's his fault. I think he's doing the job that you would expect, more so, I would imagine, from that kind of center back.
You hate Rob Holding. I can't believe that. Tom, how much did we miss Granit Xhaka yesterday? And share your views that you've shared on your podcast about who you would have played in his place and what you would have done in game in that position.
Yeah, it feels like every season, every summer, we talk about Granit Xhaka. We talk about how can we upgrade on Granit Xhaka, and yet every time he's not there, we suffer. And it kind of, I think, shows and symbolises how important he is to the team and what he does for the team. And if you want to upgrade on Granit Xhaka, you've got to buy a hell of a player to be able to do that, to bring what he brings to the team. So, the importance is there. I feel if he's there yesterday, I don't think the game goes, even with the way it started, I feel like the calmness would be there more so than it was with his replacement, who I'll come on to. But the importance of Granit Xhaka is going to be key for that eventual changeover as well for the player that comes in when we do eventually need to, because he's not getting any younger, I say, as a 28-year-old. But yeah, that's the way it goes in football. But his replacement
was, based on current footballing ability, the second best Vieira in that stadium yesterday. I think we could probably say that. But tell us about
Fabio. We shouldn't really call him Vieira.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Your thoughts? Now, should Fabio Vieira have been? We've seen him put in that position before, so you almost kind of know how Arteta works, and you knew that he would be the guy to start there. But you've got some other options. Would you have played somebody else, or would you have played him?
If I was sitting here and I say I would have played someone else, I'd be lying, because I felt as though Vieira is who Arteta considers the second choice left side 8 in that midfield. And so when it was debated about who would come in, who's going to come in for Xhaka, I knew it was going to be Vieira. I thought it was Vieira. And to be honest, I didn't really have an issue when I saw Vieira in the team, mainly because of who we were facing. I feel as though if it was Man City we were playing, maybe bringing Jorginho and Partey into the midfield would have been more sensical. But being Southampton, I think a lot of us thought, well, Vieira coming in, we've got Vieira and Ødegaard, that's going to be a great outlet for us to go and attack with more ferocity and with greater chance creation frequency. So I didn't see necessarily an issue with Vieira starting this game. But what I saw an issue was almost from the first 10 minutes is maybe we've underestimated the impact of how little football he's had to play this season after getting 20-plus goal contributions for Porto the season prior. And the reasons why we signed these guys is because of the amount of research and analysis and scouting. You think about the recruitment we've done under Arteta and Edu. That's what's got us into the position we are. That's what's got us the squad. So if they sign Vieira, I'm inclined to believe that they've signed him for the right reasons. But
they just paid too much for him.
Yeah, £34 million is a hell of a lot of money, and it's going to bring expectation. Ironically, it's a very similar figure to the player that he replaced in the team yesterday. But that player that he replaced has been at the club for 7 years, and then you're bringing in a player that's played, how many starts? I think you can probably count it on one hand how many starts in the Premier League that guy's had. So there was an expectation, I think, that it was going to be a challenge for him. I think I underestimated how much he would struggle. And I also feel as though we could have changed him probably at half-time based upon what we saw in the first half. But, yeah.
We'll talk about the subs that were made and not made, but you have some comments on Vieira and Xhaka?
So nobody thinks Vieira played well yesterday, right? He didn't play well.
Raise your hands and stand up if you think Vieira played well yesterday.
And walk out.
We got one.
And I think most of us, in hindsight, would have said, well, why didn't we start Leo Trossard, right? In every team, there's the player that we think could play a role, but the manager doesn't see it, right? I remember Thomas Vermaelen could be our central defensive midfielder, right? And managers don't see it that way. I just want to say one thing about the missing Xhaka narrative of that and the Vieira component to it. Vieira didn't play well. The entire game yesterday has to be viewed through the lens of conceding in the first minute. And it has to be viewed through the lens of the panic that creates and runs through the whole team. You have a young and experienced player who we know has a high technical level, but does not have the experience in that kind of pressurized situation. And immediately, you're in a rescue the game environment. And almost soon after that, you're 2-0 down. That completely changes what you're asking that young player to do. If we don't concede that goal in the first minute, do any of us think that we wouldn't have gotten our foot on the ball, gotten a hold of that game, and eventually found a way through? And so, while I don't think Vieira played well, I think it's important to say on the Xhaka thing, and this is not to knock him. Granit Xhaka was on the pitch when we threw 2 goals away at West Ham. Granit Xhaka was on the pitch when we threw 2 goals away at Anfield. So we do like to live in the moment a bit. Ramsdale, he cost it. Well, Ramsdale's the reason we didn't lose at Anfield, right? So everything has to be viewed through the lens of, I think, the season as a whole and the environment of the game state and how that influences a game. And so while I don't think Fabio Vieira played well, while I think Leo Trossard changed the game, once the game was all hands to the pump, attack, you have to score 3 to get the win, you need a very different dynamic. And that only existed because we threw 2 goals away at home to the bottom team. The only team in the Premier League that has fewer clean sheets at home than Arsenal is Southampton. That's the problem. And that is not indicative of a team that's ready to compete for a title. And I do think the Rob Holding thing, without wanting to stick the boot in too much, I think the problem's at the back. I mean, we've scored 2 at Anfield, we scored 2 at West Ham, we scored 3 at home to Southampton. That should be 9 points. And the fact that it's not 9 points is not because Trossard played poorly yesterday as much as he did. It's because of the way we have let them.
Not Trossard, Vieira.
Vieira. Sorry. Trossard was brilliant. Love Trossard. But Vieira, that's the one. Anyway.
Our attack has to score 4 goals right now to win a game. That's just not conducive.
That's not the game we've been playing this season that's led to our success. I realize this is kind of two comments in a row about Arteta in a sense, but how...
Are you trying to target me, Mike?
I'm not. But you did say you wanted some spice in this podcast, so...
Well, I like it spicy. Who doesn't?
Well, let's... Again, listening to Tom this morning, it was amusing that Tom ended up having to tell a listener that he really did think that Arteta should have gone out onto the pitch 30 seconds in and told Ramsdale not to pass to that guy, and it was Arteta's fault that goal went in. I'm not placing you in that category.
Shocking, I know.
But what could Arteta, in your mind, have? I mean, how has he in the last 3 games been responsible or not responsible for kind of the capitulations that we've had in various ways?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say about Rob Holding, I can never ever play my Arsene Wenger video ever again now. Where I told him that it was...
I wish he cost 50 million. I'm sorry, he didn't cost 50 million.
Yeah, and I said he was such an astute signing and Wenger offered me a job on his scouting team. That video is dead, I think, now. I'm not sure. Unless Rob Holding plays against Haaland and City the way he did against Chelsea and Diego Costa. That is the Holding I'm hoping and praying comes out. And if he does, we will carry him on our shoulders. And we will immortalise him if we win that game and he plays well.
Until the on goal at St. James Park.
Yeah. Okay, so I think the substitutions have been an issue, and I think that's a common thread for a lot of Arsenal fans. But to be fair to him also, the squad isn't where it needs to be, and I think we're seeing that in the latter half of trying to win a title. Beyond our starting 11, the drop-off is way too much. Thank goodness we signed Trossard in January, and we have that option. I don't understand why all of a sudden he's not using Jorginho enough when Jorginho started off on fire for us, and, from the Villa game on. Is it a pace issue? I think there's certain teams, you guys can tell me I'm not the tactical expert on the panel, but it feels like he's trusted players and then he doesn't play them. That's the part that he confuses me about. Yesterday, I said on our show last week to Kev, I can see Emile Smith-Rowe leaving Arsenal, maybe not this summer, but I can see him leaving and I'm going to Emery at Aston Villa. I can see that happening, right? He's going to want to play football. And a lot of these players, they just want to play football. What he's done really well so far is keep everybody happy and keep it cohesive. But it's really tough for a manager when you've got your starting 11 and they're so good and they've been on fire, and then you've got to rely on Rob Holding, Fabio Vieira, and all these other players. I don't understand why he took Martinelli off when for me, he was the best player yesterday. I think that guy's heart's going to burst when I watch him play for Arsenal.
He did not look happy either. Like
shouldn't be happy.
He did all the right things. He patted Arteta on the back as he went off, but I've never seen Martinelli look
good. He shouldn't be happy, and
I
none
think
of
he
them
was just
should be
shattered
happy.
to be not able to influence the game after that.
Yeah, well, he scored a great goal, and when we needed a goal, he took off a goal scorer, and I didn't understand that. So, look, I'm not the manager, but I'm a fan, and on our show we talk about these things, and I just think that in instances when you need something, Emile Smith-Rowe scored 10 goals last season, and he was happy to come off the bench in the latter season to just be part of the team. Is he not recovering well from his injury? I don't know. Has something happened since then? Is he actually not the same player since his injury? We don't know any of those things. So those are the parts that confuse me about Arteta. And just to finish, everyone's going at the players. They definitely were deers in headlights yesterday, right? And at the same time, Mikel Arteta, to me, on the sideline at West Ham and on the sideline at yesterday, looked a little lost. I saw in his eyes a little bit like when that Liverpool game at Anfield, when we were playing well and he had the argument with Jurgen Klopp, and then the crowd got into it, and then after that, he looked like he didn't really have much to say, and he looked a little bit lost, and he needs to earn his crust right now. What are you all looking at?
I just want to say, nobody... Try not to read too much into the black cat hovering over the entire
I'm not a superstitious person, but I am instantly not feeling as good about the rest of the season as I was before.
That clearly doesn't mean anything. Can I just one thing, just super quick on the subs. I think so. Firstly, again, we did score 3 goals, and we almost got a fourth. We did apply the pressure. I mean, it is really hard when you're saying, oh, the team should have scored 4. Well, how many times do you score 4, right? But what I thought was interesting yesterday is Mikel did something he didn't do at West Ham and Anfield that I wish he had done. Odegaard and Jesus were having a bad game, but he stuck with them because they're real class, and their class showed. And when the chips were down, we saw our best players step up. And Odegaard and Jesus are a big reason we got 1 instead of 0, and nearly 3 instead of 1. And I think if you could ask Mikel what his mistake was, he wouldn't say any of the subs against Southampton. He'd say, I should have let those guys influence the game at the Olympic Stadium and at Anfield and trusted their quality instead of an untested Kiwior or Jorginho. When you just say, who do I want on the pitch to a game I have to win? Do I want it to be Jesus and Odegaard, or do I want it to be Vieira and Kiwior and Jorginho? I think we all know the answer. So it's not yesterday so much where I would critique the changes. It's that yesterday I think proves that maybe he could have persisted with his quality.
Strong, Elliot. Strong. Good man.
Get in there.
Everybody please stand up and clap for Elliot.
No.
So Mike, I know you're going to ask me a question, but 2 things. I can't work under these conditions. There's a cat on a pipe.
Dilly, please get up there.
And also, Mike, I know you're going to ask me a question, but there's
oh my gosh.
I don't have to ask you a question. If you are going to talk without me prompting you, you can be my guest.
Basically, I come from a podcast in which the tradition is to ignore Elliot's questions and talk about what you're going to do. So that's what
that makes my job 10 times easier.
It's almost like Clive is here.
Yeah. And I've only got one insightful take, or at least I think it's insightful, so it's on Rob Holding. The thing is, we think about Rob Holding in terms of maybe making us defensively more vulnerable. We all know he's not this kind of centre-back. We're playing the second highest line in the league, and against Southampton, we must have been at record levels how high we were pushing up. It's not really his game. He's a solid centre-back for a team like that FA Cup final. We had 3 at the back. Chelsea were maybe the stronger football team at that point. We were pushed right back. It was around the penalty box. That's his jam. And now we're asking him to play a different kind of game. But the bigger thing I thought yesterday in terms of, if you go back a couple of months ago and we finding out we were going to lose Saliba, and you're thinking, well, there are certain games Holding will be fine. This is one of the games you would have said Holding will be fine. Yes. And what I learned and appreciated yesterday is one of the things Saliba does, one of the things our team does, remember all those moments yesterday where we take a shot and you'd beat 2 guys, but the third guy would be the guy who blocked it. There'd be 4 guys between Saka or Martinelli or Odegaard or whoever, or Trossard later on, who were taking a shot, and it's a really, what's his face, Reece Nelson, right? 4 guys between him.
His face wasn't bad yesterday.
Yeah, he was pretty good. But you got 4 guys between him and the goal. What Saliba does for you with Gabriel and with White and with Partey is he does la pausa, right? They put their foot on the ball. But by bringing it back to Saliba, he'll maybe spin a player, he'll pull them out. He creates those spaces between the lines that then when you come back and attack, he was a big part, Saliba was, of how you draw out the opponents so that you can come back through the middle, down the sides, across, and there are the spaces between the lines. That's what I guess, took away from the Southampton game yesterday. Holding, I would have said a month and a half ago, yeah, he'd be great. He'd be fine in those kinds of games because we'll dominate the ball. Actually, apart from all the passing and the distribution things and the defending thing that Saliba does, the other thing he does is he invites the opponent onto him. He holds onto the ball till they come right to him, and then you got some lines to play through. I think you saw in the whole second half, 4 guys between whoever was taking the shot and the back of the net, and Saliba just draws them out. And
when we were in the green room getting ready, Paul said to Mike, the only really important thing is give me an opportunity to say la pausa. They'll be really impressed by
this.
That. And so
that, ladies and gentlemen, is what you call tactical nous.
Can I say one thing on the Holding thing? It's interesting. I mentioned the psychological effect of it, and I think that's also part of this. missing Saliba. People call it intangible, and you can laugh at that. And they talked about this aura that Virgil van Dijk had when he was kind of dominating for Liverpool. But I think Saliba has a little bit of that. That, you know, he's this big, imposing, you know, assured central defender. So when you're missing that, I think a lot of that benefit that you get that you can't really put your finger on goes away as well. And not only just for the fans or the players of the opposing team, but I think for our players as well, like Ramsdale, like Ben White, all those players. I think that aura that Saliba had, that everything's going to be okay, goes away. And I think we saw a little bit of that.
We've watched every game this season. Ask yourself this: how many times this season, prior to yesterday, have you ever seen Thomas Partey drop into the back line to be in the first phase of progression?
He was almost right at our 6-yard
We've
line.
never seen it all season.
Yep.
And he's not doing that if Saliba's there.
Correct. And I think that's a cycle that might be a tactical thing that Arteta's having them do, and it might just be an automatic thing that he's doing to try to protect the defense because we're not as assured with someone like Holding, and that's not his fault. You know, I think he's doing the best that he can, and he's doing a job that you expect from like I said, a fourth-choice center back. But it's definitely there, I think.
So I do like to look at perspective. It's something I always kind of harp on because, you know, I don't know if you know this, but the podcast and like the social media world surrounding Arsenal can be kind of reactionary in both directions. So I've always kind of harped on, you know, well, are we looking at what just happened in the last 2 hours? Are we looking at what's happened in the last 2 weeks? Or are we looking at what's happened in the last 9 months or 3 years? And I think you can have various feelings about those things that are not always congruous with each other. So the one question I hate so much that I'm going to ask it now. Is somebody told you at the beginning of the season that we'd be top of the table in April? And I hate that question because the next part always involves biting off someone's hand or ripping someone's arm off or something like that. And it's just, there's no need for that violence. But at the same time, starting with you, Jon, I mean, can you put perspective on this late season wobble? And I think that's a kind of an understatement for what we're going through right now.
That is an understatement.
Can you put perspective on that in the perspective of where is Arsenal Football Club as a team, either on the rise or out of their depth or whatever? How do you see things? How do you prefer to look at things? Right
Jon, what are you thinking about? How about the word bobble? Bottle and wobble.
Bobble?
A bobble. We're having a bobble.
Nah, it's more than a bobble.
Bobble reminds me of like something that goes like this.
I feel like we're like dropping the wedding cake. That's kind of where I'm at. But to answer your question,
5-second rule.
I don't know if it works that way. I feel like if you had told me that we'd be fighting Man City for the title, I'd be happy with that. If you had ripped my arm off, right? If you had told me that we'd possibly lose in the manner that we seem to be doing right now, which hopefully doesn't materialize, but then I would not be happy with that. So I think when you look at taking the COVID year aside, I think we're ahead of schedule of where Arteta wants to be with respect to his project and trusting the process that we're all supposed to be doing here. I don't think that any person was expecting us to be neck and neck with Man City at this point in whatever this kind of project is. And it's for me, at least, I feel like it's hard for me to be too upset about if we do lose it, but at the same time, man, I'm going to be upset if we do lose it. So it's kind of this paradoxical feeling that I have with respect to how long I've been wanting to see us compete. There was a time when you asked me, what do you want to see from Arsenal Football Club? And the answer was, I want to see us at least challenge for the title. That's what we should be doing every season. And, you know, there was a point where top four was a trophy for us. And there was, let me rephrase that. There was a point where top four, that wasn't enough for us. And then there was a point where top four was the goal. And then there's another next step, which is we need to be challenging for the title, which is what Arsenal used to be. That we would be going into a season as favorites to at least be in the conversation. And I think that that's where we are right now. So if you asked me at the beginning of the season, is Arsenal going to be going into the next season?
I said I hate that question, by the way.
If you're going to be going into the next season as potential in the top conversation for who's going to be challenging for the title, I think that based off of whatever kind of business clubs do in the summer and how we finish, we're in that conversation now, and we weren't last season. So that's progress to me. But I do see there's some things that need to be fixed from a mentality perspective, but then again, you can kind of rationalize those away. Young squad, young manager, they're going to learn from this, and you think, okay, look at what this club did when they missed out on the top 4 last season, right? We saw a 180, a complete 180 with the club. We saw them all of a sudden now pushing, again, against this juggernaut that is Man City and Holland, who I don't think he'll ever stop scoring goals. So what happens if we miss out now? I think that we're going to hopefully see a similar kind of a change for next season. So again, my goal, challenge for the title. We're doing that this season, and I think we're going to be doing that next season as well. So that I can't really be too upset about that. And if you told me that's where we would be now, I'd bite your arm off. Yeah.
Even though he doesn't know what to do with his own hands, he's going to bite other people's arms off. I know what to do with yours. Same question, and then I'm gonna ask everyone the same question. But Tom, does the manner in which this seems to be going change things? I mean, there are 2 ways to finish, and if hypothetically we finish second, there are 2 ways to finish second. There's dropping down from first, and there's rushing up to second. And you'll feel differently, won't you?
Yeah, of course. It sounds. Me and Elliot were talking about this yesterday. It wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility that Arsenal end the season, 10 points off City. I don't want that to be the case, but based upon the last 3 results, it's difficult to see a reality where that doesn't exist. I'm hoping that what we've seen in those 3 games, the start of the Liverpool game, the start of the West Ham game, how we rallied in yesterday's game, the potential of this Arsenal, what it can achieve. You know that we can go to City and, as Harry Neville of all people just said the other day, boo, by the way, that we can rip any team apart if we've got the capability on the day. Exactly, that famous cliche. Where's your bell, by the way?
I made a very conscious decision not to bring the bell.
Fair enough. But what's frustrating for me, I think, is when people describe this season, if we do finish second, as a failure, because it's so not that. I look back at the FA Cup victories we've had in the last 10 years, whether it was Arsene Wenger's stopping of the going to 10 years without a trophy, whether it was the FA Cup the year after that, whether it was his final one as Arsenal manager, whether it was even Arteta's one, finishing 8th in the table and rescuing European qualification. I wouldn't swap any of those FA Cups for this season, because this season is so important for us getting back to where we want to be as a football club. And if you ask me if any of those previous 4 FA Cups got us closer to being title challengers in the following season compared to this one, and you feel it's the FA Cup, I'd ask you to look again, because what we've done leading up to this campaign, be it with recruitment, be it with the change of manager 2.5 years ago, be it with moving players out that we desperately needed to move out, cough Aubameyang, So we needed to move those players on, and we needed to sculpt the club in the way that we've sculpted it. And that has led us to this point now, and what I think we will do next season is establish ourselves with further recruitment and furthering what Arteta has set aside for us.
Tom, you can blame Arsene Wenger for selling us the FA Cup teams as potentially being Premier League winning teams. That's on him.
Well, and
let's give it to Sophie for the blame Arteta and blame Arsene Wenger trifecta. I mean, just win everybody over.
But it is.
But we just, as a panel, we're all Kroenke in, right? I mean, when it comes
no one loves a billionaire like Paul.
When it comes to the scapegoats, but that brings up an interesting question, because you've just basically placed a season where we may finish second and trophyless above an FA Cup winning.
I never used
people were always like, would you rather have top 4 or would you rather have a trophy? And Tottenham would take anything other than that toilet seat that was held up before.
Who could have won them a trophy a week before the final.
Desperation hire. All right, so Elliot.
Well, yeah, so talk about the bell. If I had my mug, I'd tap the 2 things can be true segment. I am going to go with a beloved 2 things can be true. There is a lens through which you can look at this, which is the Project TM. And we all have respect for and appreciation for the project and the way that is being constructed, the way the team is being built, the journey that we're on, and we realize that it is a multi-season process. But we should still have the right to experience seasons as their own story. And you have the right to be furious, crestfallen, heartbroken if we don't do this. And so I don't think being heartbroken from the position we were in over not winning the title means that you think Edu out and Arteta out. And by the way, if you think that, we have a phone number you can call. There's help for that. But you can look at the season through the lens of just the story that's being told this season. And from the position we got ourselves into, the results we've just had, based on what happens next, it will be true that we threw the title away. Threw it away with a extraordinarily good point total, with tons of goals scored, with the most fun season I've had in a decade. All of those things are all true together. And none of it means that I don't think we're on the right trajectory. So of course we will go into next season feeling we're positioned for future success. But I think you can still rightfully look at this season, and if it doesn't happen, let the disappointment in just a little bit. Because the funny thing about the disappointment is, it is in a way a validation of the fact that we could have done it. Right? This sort of mealy-mouthed, oh, it's City, we can't beat City. You know, like, maybe we can't. But that's the task we have in front of us.
That's a great point, Elliot. Remember the narrative last year? Oh, we bottled it for top 4. Well, fucking, we just breezed through that. You're absolutely right in terms of saying a narrative says you can't do something, and the next year, bump.
Yeah.
I heard 40 people screaming last year, all I want for Arsenal, I don't deserve a title, we don't deserve Champions League titles. I just want the team to compete and be there in April. That was me, for sure. Was that you? Yeah.
But also, fuck that. Like, I want a title. I want to win the...
Well,
It's been 10 years.
Exactly.
Let's win the fucking title. Yeah. Like... Let's not feel so bad for ourselves that, Manchester City has too much money to make that's true.
I'm not saying
win
it's
the fucking
enough
title.
just to compete. I'm saying that everyone's goal for this year was, I just want to be in it. And we're in it, and yet the same people are often going to now say, oh, this has been a failure. I'm not talking about anybody here.
Not failure, but disappointment.
Lads. No fighting. Come on, lads.
If it's the same trajectory that we've been on, we're going to be bottling the Champions League final next season and winning the league. So I'm okay with that, to be fair.
Yeah.
But also Arteta out for bottling the Champions League final.
100%.
We couldn't even beat Sporting Lisbon in the Europa League, and now we're in the Champions League final.
Okay.
Oh, Debbie Downer here. I thought I was being a real.
So Sophie, Arteta. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
Perspective on where we are, and are we headed into next year, no matter what happens this year, on the up?
So sometimes it's really good to get perspective from non-Arsenal people. I find that's really healthy, right? Because we're in this bubble. And the last few weeks, I've been speaking to the Anfield Rap guys throughout the season, doing some stuff for them, and they've been coming and doing some stuff for us. And I spoke to Sophie Nicolaou, and I did an interview with Ian Doyle from the Liverpool Echo. He was the journalist that wrote the Lucky article, which I'm sure you all read. A few things out of that. Ian Doyle's article was nothing but Arsenal are lucky because of all these other things that are happening in the Premier League, or what Chelsea are not doing, what City aren't doing this season, and Chelsea, etc. The Anfield Rap guys and Sophie Nicolaou felt like he was so off, right? That's their own community, their own people. But they felt like there's nothing lucky about Arsenal's season. You guys have been a great team to watch as a neutral, and you've also been one of the best teams, not only in England, but in Europe this year. That Europa League comment just came back to bite me in the arse. So when you hear it from them, and then Ian Doyle, when I said to him, well, why write that? Well, it was clickbait, of course, but also his answer was quite enlightening for me. He goes, we're bitter. I go, how can you be bitter? And then I started putting pictures up of Anfield 89 and Arshavin doing the 4. I go, surely you can't be bitter about, that, but you can be bitter about 89. He said, no. He said, my lucky comment, and he should have said that, because it would have been such a better piece, right? He's bitter because everyone is struggling this season, that Liverpool have failed to capitalise on this moment. Chelsea have failed, right? Man United have failed. And here we are, Arsenal, the English club, the way we always try to do it the right way. We haven't spent the gazillions, even though we've spent gazillions, saying we're just bitter that it's you and not us.
You know why those teams are failing? Because we beat them this year.
And that's the thing, though. I think that, yes, I want to win the Premier League bad. I don't know if I'm going to go to Pluto or Mars if we don't. Because it's not about my own feelings. It's about I can't deal with all the rubbish that's going to come from the outside. Because I don't think it would be Okay, Man United fans, where are you right now? You want to talk about bottling? Bottling is losing 7-0 at Anfield. That's bottling for me. Right? So that's how I feel. I've enjoyed the journey, and I said to Kev, like, I'm trying not to think about the end because the journey's been so amazing. We talked about it when you came on with Clive. That's what I'm focused on. But if the end ends badly, I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
No, nor should you. But I think as the summer goes on, it'll probably start to set in. We'll see. Was this club just happy to be here, or are we really continuing to still build something? Paul, the last word before the intermission. Your perspective on where we are as a football club.
All right, it's a process. We know that. The sequence is important in assessing a season emotionally. I guess I always was concerned if we didn't end as strongly as the season had been. But holy shit. Go back to last season. We ended badly. We had a brilliant preseason. We came out of the traps like an absolute bullet. We've had a great season. It'll be a great season, and we'll get stronger next year. Mikel Arteta is machine learning and AI. He's a man with a plan. He's fucking ruthless. Yeah, he is fucking ruthless. He's not here to get top 4. He's not just here to win the league. He's going to try and win Champions League, go deep. Don't be worrying about Smith Rowe next year. We're not just going to be in 2 competitions next year, playing 52, 53, 55 games. We're going to be in 4 competitions,
5.
Seriously.
We're winning the Emirates Cup, goddammit. Come on. We're winning that shit.
So don't be worrying about that shit. There's going to be loads of minutes, loads of big games.
Like he went for the League Cup this year and the FA Cup.
No. I don't mean that. Because he's a man with a fucking plan. That's next year. We're only on DEFCON 3. We're going to, is it DEFCON 5 or DEFCON 1? I don't know.
I think it's bad when it gets lower, but it's been a long time.
Here's my analogy. You got a nice meal. You got 4 really delicious ingredients. Only one of them isn't delicious. It's a turd. And you got to decide what order you're going to eat your ingredients in. A turd, yes. Are you going to eat it first to get it out of the way? I think I'm going to have something nice first. I'm going to have a turd second. I'm going to have something delicious. And then I'm going to have something delicious. Unfortunately, we get to eat the turd last.
I have to edit this shit every day. Every day I got to sit down and edit this shit. You see what?
Unfortunately, that's this season. But we're going to go strong in preseason. We're going to go strong next year. We are a learning machine. It's a process. It's going to be all okay. Wednesday, who knows what happens after that? It could be a really... Look, we talked yesterday and I offered you the deal and you went back and forward.
I did.
Would you take beating City and a good second and just we give up everything else, or would you roll the dice on the season? I'll tell you, I'd take beating City and coming second.
He's a famous coward.
And going out strong. It's a gamble.
So actually,
wait,
this is,
versus what the alternative?
I'll just say this. So I thought this was the most ridiculous proposition.
The alternative is whatever happens, and a lot of people weren't feeling very good about what was going to happen.
We did start
next.
going down this path, and intellectually, if you think about it, you're like, that's ridiculous. Why would I take beating City in second? Like, let's go win the title.
I'm trying to process.
So we started thinking about. We're like, well, it's not unrealistic we lose to City.
Right.
They're really good, and we may not have our full squad. And I mean, it's not out of the question we could lose at Newcastle. That's a hard place to go, and I mean. It's
Brighton,
not unreasonable. You could drop points to Brighton. They're really good. And you start doing the math, and you're like,
well, actually, anyone.
Well, shit. This could finish in a way that leaves us feeling a lot less encouraged.
I see
So Paul's point was if you could get a win at the Etihad and just come up short, versus what I just laid out. And
You're talking me into it.
No, we want to go win the title, but that's still on the table, and that's the scary thing.
We all
want
to win the title. That wasn't the question. But you got to pick one.
Yeah.
What you think?
If we can't win it, how do we want to know?
If we're gonna lose off the title, how bad do we want to lose?
I think they call that Sophie's choice.
Do you know? That's my choice. Do you know what that adds? Is I get. You know what? Your crazy mind. I'm sitting here thinking, I can't believe I'm buying into his crazy shit here. But
they all come around eventually.
You know what it adds? Is pedigree. The pedigree of beating them. We've broken ducks. This is why I thought we were going to win the title. Yeah, we've broken ducks this season. We're breaking records. Like, to beat them, to beat Tottenham twice, to beat...
If you think about it, to Paul's point, there is the narrative we bottled it last season, and I think we all know why maybe that is or is not true. If we fall away this season, that narrative is going to be there. And next season, we think we're going to be in this position again. How does this team convince itself next season that it can do it from a good position? And to Paul's point, as crazy as it is, as usual,
knock off the team.
If we do beat City, go on to do pretty well, just fall short on goal difference or by a point, I think the narrative will not be they bottled it. It'll be they went toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the world and just came up short. What a great season. They can go do it next season. We cannot afford to fall away again and then go into next season with that question. Where would we need to be in April next season to believe we could do it? Right? We need that belief.
We can't constantly be going through this cycle where we have to be 18 points up on our rival in order to not worry that we're going to bottle it again.
I'd take the points deduction now, though, if they want to give it to City.
That's true.
So if we're going to lose it, we just got to not lose it too bad, basically.
Well, we've been talking about bottling it. Someone who is not bottling it is the five of you.
I really love that we get to have this and that I get to be a part of this. I'm in a stage of my life where otherwise I'd be working my job, I'd be raising my kids, and I'd be, just living my life. And instead...
Fuck them, man.
Fuck that, yeah. And I think we're all better off that I'm not doing that. And their therapists will have that problem to solve another day. But this is awesome. And so most of all, just the most important thing, thank you for caring about it at all. And it may not be us, it may be Sophie, it may be Tom, it may be John, it may be, well, it's probably, one of the people I named. It may be Mike. It is a really beautiful thing. Have you ever gotten to one of these events and been like, wow, those were terrible people? Because I never have. So we must be doing something right. And the most important thing is just, as long as we engage on the points, on the topics, and take each other seriously with respect, I love it. So I really thank you for being a part of it because it means the world to me.
Well said. Tom, we'll go to you on this, and then we're going to wrap it up here.
Yeah, look, anyone that's been part of the TGT community will know how much of an emphasis I've put on respect and community and making sure that it's a place where if you want to voice an opinion about Arsenal, people are going to listen. They're not just going to bat away what you say. Especially in the Arsenal community in particular, there are great people out there. I am so fortunate to have met the people that are on this panel and to do the things that I've done with the people on this panel in a football. That was coming out weird, wasn't it? Paul was getting excited then for a second. But I think that ultimately, I've come to an event. This is the first Arsenal America event I've ever been to, and I could not have felt more welcomed by nicer people.
Tom. Yes, mate.
I've not bought a single drink here at all, and I loved you guys for that.
It's the most lucrative week he's ever had.
I know. Yeah. It's been great. It's been absolutely fantastic, and I think that you guys deserve a round of applause for yourselves for how fantastic you've been.
Woo!
And thank you to everybody that has. I know Mike's going to give you thanks shortly, but genuinely, just from a personal point of view, for coming all this way and travelling to see so many of you, it's like people travel all over the world to see sights and see things, but I don't think anything can ever beat meeting new people, meeting new friends, and making relationships that I remember forever. It's great, and I mean, if it's very difficult and it's very pricey to travel abroad, but if in any way you can travel to get to London and to get to a game, I encourage you to add it to your bucket list, to do it, to meet up with other Arsenal fans, and join any one of the communities that we have here, because there's great ways, as Sophie said, about meeting new people in that way. We have a Strava group from me and Sophie do our Eat, Sleep, Arsenal, Repeat Fitness podcast. 2 people met doing cycling in Alicante, and then went to a game in Alicante together to watch. It's mad.
Alicante.
And now they have 7 kids together.
Is Alicante like al dente?
I'd be remiss if I didn't point this out, by the way. Tim, on our pod, met his wife on Twitter.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, it happens.
Elliot and I met on Twitter.
Right, so there's good and the bad. You take the good and the bad. I think that's important.
Meanwhile, I met my wife on CompuServe. This has been the first annual GoonerPalooza Live podcast. First, let's please give a loud thank you to Redline VR for hosting this event today. Woo! Henry behind the board, give your hand. Come on, you've been great. Thank you to the amazing Chicago Gooners for hosting us this entire weekend. Unbelievable job. Jim, Dilly, Scott, everybody from the, Alan, everybody from the Chicago Gooners has been amazing. Thank you to the VIP ticket holders, a.k.a. bots, who sold out the section in 5 minutes and then sold their tickets on the secondary markets for 28,000 euros each. Thank you.
It's all going to the fundraiser, baby.
Oh, yeah. All. And speaking of which, thank you to everyone who bought a ticket. All proceeds from today go to the Arsenal Vision's Arsenal Foundation fundraiser AF. Personal thank you from me to everyone on this panel. We kind of touched on this, but podcasters often get a bad rap for being kind of egotistical, blustery, disingenuous, to get clicks or views or whatever. And there's two kinds. You want more? No. There's 5 people sitting with me today that, and the people that they surround themselves with that are the hardest working, most genuine, creative, interesting, and truly good people in the game today. And then Elliot. It's a special treat. I feel like an outlier, but it's a special treat counting them as my friends. It's been a special treat sitting amongst them tonight. These people are spending their time and effort and energy and love for the club and for other people doing what they do, and I'm really proud to sit amongst you guys tonight. Thank you for joining me.
We love you, Mike. Can I do the line?
Mike.
What? Are we done? Are we done?
Mike, do we get a closing statement each?
Go ahead, yeah. So yeah, let's for anyone who doesn't know, we'll go one more time across the table. Let us know where to find you on Twitter or other social media or Mastodon or whatever.
No, I didn't. I just meant a closing statement.
Yeah,
that's
go
what
ahead.
we do on the Highbury Squad.
Go ahead, but we're going to start with Paul, though.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a closing statement. I love you guys. I really fucking love you guys. Say what you like about Twitter as an app, but like social media, that's how I met all you guys. There's good and bad out there. But I absolutely fucking love these events. The ones among you who came along and you're like, well, I don't really know anybody, I'm coming on my own and stuff, come up and say hello. Fucking love it. Thanks, everybody.
Good job. Good job. Good job.
Good job. You didn't bring up turd one time in your closing statement.
Hang on a second, Sophie. I got to jump in there.
I'm so grateful for good people. And in this world, you know, sometimes when you get older, you don't feel like you're going to meet good people because you feel like you got your tribe, right? And this football club never ceases to amaze me with meeting new people. There are a lot of great Arsenal fans out there. Our club is beautiful, and the people who support it are also beautiful. And I think we need to stick together no matter what happens at the end of this season. We've said it maybe 2 or 3 years, in the last 2 or 3 years. But I truly feel like we have our Arsenal back. And that is a lot. Look what it means. Look where we are. Our club has brought us here together. No matter whether we win or lose, we have this, and I think that's important. But the next level is to win and to bring back the winning culture and memories. And we won't stop until we win. And as fans, we want to win. Don't downgrade what you want as a fan. Don't ever be afraid to talk about what you want as a fan, ever. Because whatever you think and whatever you believe, you have every right to as an Arsenal fan. Thank you for making me part of this event. Chicago Gooners, let me tell you something. Your branding is fucking cool. You are awesome. This event is amazing, and you guys have done a phenomenal job. Thank you so much, humbly. I'm so happy to be part of it.
So super quick to Jim and Ellie, thank you for first the karaoke, but also the organizing and everything did. To Dilly as well, who put in tremendous amount of work, and none of this would have happened without that. Mike,
and the whole team.
Mike, like the work you've done is like I make fun of you because you're an easy target, because you take it and you're brilliant. Mike is the most loving, wonderful human being you could hope to meet. whether you're in London, whether you're in Chicago, wherever you find him at an Arsenal event, this is the one person you can walk up to and say, help me feel a part of this, and you will feel a part of it. You are a beautiful human. I love you, and thank you for everything you do for us. And your fundraising, of course, for Gooners vs. Cancer. Obviously, I just want to say we're sticking around, so I hope we'll get to meet all of you, come out, talk, hang out, have a drink. Like, really looking forward to meeting everybody. And then last but not least, we love you, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10, City 0.
Yes. Had to get that in. Tom?
Yeah, so you can follow me at the Gooner Talk TV.
Patreon address, please?
Yeah.
Memberships?
No, it's been great. I can only echo what Elliot said about Mike. He's been fantastic. You know, I've known this guy for, the better part of 8 years, and, you know, it's definitely worth the costs of that. You know. He came all the way.
It's a two-way street.
He came all the way to the UK when I got married last year, and, you know, has been an amazing friend of mine for the last, it must be 8 years or so. Yeah, so make sure you give your thanks to Mike when you do speak to him later, because he's, you know, done some great stuff, as well as, of course, our fantastic host. Thank you so much to everybody that's helped put this together. It's been amazing. I feel so welcomed by everyone here, and yeah, I wouldn't have changed it for the world. So, well, we could have won.
Maybe one thing.
John, your final words about me.
I actually was going to say one more final round of applause for Mike. And I also want to give a shout out to the Chicago Gooners, because I'm yes, please. So I came from Miami, where, you know, we had like the Miami Arsenal Supporters Club, and it was, you know, I knew that one thing that's awesome about this club is that you can do something like move to a new city and know there's already people that you're going to have a common interest with, and I found that when I came here. It was during the COVID time, so it was a little bit difficult, but when I got here, you know, it was awesome, and everyone was super welcoming and warm, and their stuff is really cool. So if you haven't bought a scarf yet, go and get a scarf. They're out. You're out. See, no scarf left. Sorry, but
get on the waiting list for scarves.
Yeah, in reality, they're awesome. The Globe is one of the coolest places I've ever watched a football match in my entire life, including the Emirates. So it's, you know, I've been, you know, if you're lucky enough to go. I'm saying I like watching in the pub, the Tollington and all that stuff. That was fun, but, you know, having a place in your hometown, which is this Chicago is for me now, that is that vivacious and awesome and fun. And Tom,
I've just seen something truly harrowing.
And then the Lord's coming up now.
All right, so I think we all know what's coming, but first, I just want to say again, my name is Mike. I host an occasional podcast on the Gooners Podcast. Two of my podcast co-hosts are here up in the VIP section, Jared and Aston. And please, if you aren't already following everybody on this panel, please do, and please remember to give very, very generously, as you all already have, to the Arsenal Vision Arsenal Foundation. First, a quick word from Matt Turner, and then Malort.
Okay, excuse me, what's happening here?
Or Malort. All right.
I've done this shot before, and let me tell you what happened. When I did it, I threw up.
That makes two of us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, mate.
Hey guys, it's Matt Turner here. I just wanted to give a big shout out to the Chicago Gooners. Thank you so much for your support and your donation to the Arsenal Charitable Foundation. Everything you do, all the support that you give every single year is really felt, and it's going to go a long way. So thanks again from here in London.
Come on, you Gooners! And it's Malort time. Everybody but me have one.
I'll take yours. Give it to me.
Get out while you
I have
can,
a
Joel.
medical waiver. I cannot have a shot.
Do you guys really want me to projectile vomit
Yes.
on the stage?
Go. Just go.
Woo!
So still,
and we'll be passing
I said
out
after
the fruit
Friday
bag.
I would never do it again. I've done it 2 more times now. This is silly.